All right, so now let's get into these for each loops. Um, and these are like my favorite. Uh, the for each loop, real simple. What it does is it iterates through an array and completes a task for each item in the array. And here's the syntax for the for each loop. So we'll type that up. Come over here and same file as before. I get myself together. The for each loop. Okay, notice how it's written. It is written camel case. All right. We'll have the array dot for each, and then we'll take each item. Okay. And then we will have our what's called a fat arrow, curly brace. And inside the curly braces, we what? Do stuff. And that's the syntax for the for each loop. So this works much like a for loop. The difference is, however, and let's see if I mentioned it in the slides. Okay, yeah. We can refactor the previous example with the coders array by using a for each loop. So let's do that. So here we had this array here. I mean, I'm not sorry, not this array, but this for loop here rather, where we said, hey, where's the good morning one? Here we go. Oh, that's good morning. But we had this for loop that says, hey, loop through the array, set I at 0, I is less than coders.length, I plus plus console.log. Good afternoon, coders I. All right. And that works just fine. We can refactor it or rewrite it using a for each loop by simply saying coders.forEach. And I will pass in right here, I'll say coder. And then I'm gonna do my fat arrow, my curly braces. And then here I can say console.log good morning. And then I'll say coder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out these while loops just because I'm going to bring this clear down. And I'm going to start this back up live. All right. And close you. And open you up. And there it is. There you can see we've said good morning to all the coders. So cool, that works. Okay. Notice how it looks a little bit different than the for loop. So let's see what's happening here. Well, one thing that we should be aware of is that for each, unlike a for loop and while loop, for each is a method. Okay. And we'll go into detail about what methods are a little later. We talked about it a little bit, but we haven't gone into detail about it. But it is a method that is built on the array object. Okay. So, in other words, what it allows us to do, well, what it does is it's attached to an array. And so I can call an array coders, for example, here in this instance, and apply the for each method, and it will know what to do. Okay. And so here I need to have my dot for each. Okay. And it needs to be written as such. All right. In camel case. And then my parentheses, notice everything is touching, right? It needs to touch because it is a method. And then I have coder right here. So how would it know what coder is? Well, this is our parameter for this argument. And essentially what we're doing is we're saying var coder. So we are initializing a variable inside of the for each loop. And so it would understand what coder is. We don't have to say var coder gets whatever. It understands what coder is. Okay. So, and this doesn't have to be coder. I mean, we can name this anything. You know, a lot of times what I will do, to make it real generic for me, I'll just use item. It's going to do the exact same thing here. But so that we can, you know, kind of see what's going on, I'm going to change that back to coder. Okay. So it's going to take each coder, and then we have our fat arrow, and that fat arrow right here, this means return. Okay. So we're going to take each coder and we're going to return what? We're going to console.log good morning coder. So you can see it's written a little differently than what we have up here. Okay. What this for each loop does, it's written in a way that we call imperative. And when it comes to programming, it's classified in many different ways, but one of the ways that we classify programming is we have what's called declarative programming, and then we have imperative programming. Okay. The for loop is declarative programming. A for each loop is imperative programming. What's the difference between the two? Declarative programming is you writing the code saying, hey, I want you to complete this task, and this is how I want you to do it. All right. So we're telling the program here, hey, I want you to greet every coder, but this is how I want you to do it. I want you to set I to 0. I want it to go, the length, as long as I is less than the length of the length of the array. And I want you to increment, so go up a step. I'm telling the program how I want it to execute here with declarative programming, the for loop. The imperative programming says, hey, I want you to complete a task, just do it. And I'm not telling you how to do it. I just do it. Okay. And my favorite example that I always love to use is declarative programming is the cha-cha slide, right? It's telling you what to do, how to do it, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. Now kick, now kick, now kick, now kick, now walk your bike. It's telling you how to do the dance, right? So that's declarative programming. Imperative programming is back that thing up by Juvenile. Girl, you looks good. Won't you back that thing up? And I'm not telling you how to do it, just do it. Okay. So that's the difference between the two. You have one set that's telling you, hey, I want you to do these things and do it this way. Or in another term that we like to use when we're referring to declarative programming is brute force. In other words, we're like kind of forcing it to complete this task. But then there's an imperative program that says, hey, I just want you to do this. And that's it. And it will do it. as much as you can, you want to be in the world of imperative programming. It's going to save you uh, a lot of stress. It will keep your hair from graying and keep the wrinkles off of your skin. Okay, if whenever possible, you want to be in the world of imperative programming, and as you uh, deepen your knowledge in JavaScript, your understanding of programming logic in general, and you start to work in other languages, particularly like say React, then you definitely want to be in the world of imperative programming as opposed to declarative programming. So, but that's the difference between a uh, a for loop, saying a for each loop, and you can see here uh, that it has been refactored. Also, what we can do with this, we can shorten this up even more. We can refactor this again. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to say, hey, coders.forEach, take each coder, and console.log, good morning, coder. And you can see that it's done now on one line as opposed to 3 different lines. How can I do this? Why do I do this? Well, if I have, say, um, here this method, and I wanted to do something simple that doesn't require me breaking it out on multiple lines, or in other words, I'm not having to do all these little mini tasks. All I want to do is just console good morning coder. I don't need the curly braces in order for that to happen. This fat arrow, as I stated before, it means return. Okay. And it's just returning this one thing, this console.log good morning plus coder. So I don't have to put it in separate lines. In other words, cause me to use curly braces or anything. Now, if I had it to do a couple of different things, maybe if I want to take each coder, matter of fact, I'm going to comment this out right here. Let's say if I wanted to say coder gets coder dot to lowercase and then console.log coder, in which case I would take each name and lowercase it. If I want to do more than one task, like right here, then yes, I would need to use curly braces. But if I'm just getting it to do one thing and one thing only, then I don't need to use curly braces. I could put it all on one line. Look at it, save me some lines. It saves me, all this other logic and stuff. I can use my brain in other places where it would be put to better use. So that's for each loop. Okay, so we also have the for of loop and the for in loop. Let's see. I think the one that we want to look at is, and I always get them confused for whatever reason. But I think we want to look at the for of loop. Yeah. Yeah. We want to look at the for of loop. So the for of loop, as you can see here in MDN, give me $1. It executes a loop that operates on a sequence of values sourced from an iterable object. And this is the important thing. An iterable object includes instances of built-ins such as arrays, strings, type array, map, set, or node list. And we haven't looked at map, sets, or node list or type array, but we have looked at strings. So let's do this. And let's talk about the for of loop. Okay. And it will look like for, and then in parentheses, we could say L of, I guess I put the array right here, or because it's not just an array. I'll put set. And then we would here do stuff. Okay. That's the syntax for a for of loop. A for of loop works, it's somewhere in between a for loop and a for each loop. It's not a method, but it will complete a task for every single item in the iterable object, if you will, or in our set. So what I could do, I could say for coder of coders, console.log what's up coder. I think this works. Oh no, I need to say let coder, I believe, or var. Let's use var. Yeah, let's use var. I think this is it. Let's find out. Yep, there it is right there, as you can see. So it's similar to the, again, it's kind of in between the for loop and the for each loop. It iterates through the entire array or the entire data set without me having to specify how to go about doing it. But it is still a little more declarative, okay? Because I do have to initialize a variable here. Notice that here, when I just had coder, when I have that there, you can see these little 3 dots. And when you see those 3 dots here in Visual Studio Code, it's just to indicate this. Again, it's not a lesson on Visual Studio Code, but it's one of the reasons why I use it. But here you see the 3 dots, and it says could not find name coder. Did you mean coder? So it's letting me know, hey, I don't know what this is right now. Okay, so I do have to initialize a variable here. So var coder of coders, and then console what's up coder. So you can see how it has some of the features from a for each loop, but it also has features from a for each loop. If you don't feel comfortable using a for each loop, if you feel more comfortable using a for loop, and you still want to loop through an entire data set, then go with the for of loop. And we'll look at a for in loop later. Okay, we're not quite there yet. However, you see this is another option here. So that's, again, but it's important because what we want to do, as developers and becoming less terrible developers, first we need to, have a data set, know how to structure our data, right? So, do I use a variable? Do I use an array? Do I use an object? Also, again, we can use a string. We can use a for of loop with a string, but I want to first have my data set. Okay. And then after I have my data set, I figure, how do I complete a task given this data set? I don't want to ever have to think about necessarily, oh, what's in the data? What does the data represent? No, as a developer, I just want to write the code that just completes the task, right? Let the other people, let somebody else worry about whatever the data set is and everything, what it contains, and all the other stuff. Let me go in there and write the code so I can get to do what it do. Now, I may need to at some point have an understanding of, the data, what have you, and what it represents. But as a developer, I want to write the code so that it will do whatever it is it needs to do. So, but let's go back here to the for of loop, because we again, it works through any iterable set, and the string does qualify as an iterable set. So in other words, I could say var my name gets, and I'll say satch. Okay, and let's say I want to take each letter of my name and I want to capitalize it. Okay, and return a capitalized version of my name here. What I'll do is I'm going to create a variable right here called all caps. Anybody. Zeke knows. Zeke gets it. Come on, Zeke, help me out. Don't leave me out here by myself. Mad Villain. Mad Lib, MF Doom. Anybody? So all caps is going to be an empty string, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a for loop, or a for of loop that will, let's say, capitalize each letter in my name and return, I guess, return name in all caps. This video here is brought to you by the good people of Stone's Throw Music. Mad Villain, the album, Mad Lib, MF Doom, rest his soul. One of the great classics. World of music, changed the game. Anyways, here we go. I'm going to say for var, I'll just call it, I'll just say letter of my name. Or let's not use letters, use car for character, or char. So for var char of my name, what do I want to do? I'm going to say all caps is going to get char dot to uppercase, like so. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to log out all caps. I think this should do it. So basically what I'm doing is, again, I'm going to loop through the string. Okay, so I'm going to take each letter from the string, and then I'm going to make it uppercase. So change it from lowercase to uppercase. I don't think I'm doing this correctly. Does the initialization need to be in the loop? No, but what I do need to do is I need to say all caps plus, I need to concatenate it. That I do need to do, because, and it's a good question though. I cannot, if I initialize it within the loop, then that means I am reinitializing it as an empty string. So I will be taking all caps, setting it to be an empty string each time, and then only passing in that value. But I do need to concatenate all caps. I believe that's it. Hey, there it is right there. Yep. So here I have string all lowercase letters, and then I have an empty string right here, all caps. Using the for of loop, I can iterate or I can loop through the string. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set all caps to be whatever all caps is plus. So in other words, I'm concatenating. I'm taking each character, making it uppercase, and storing it here in all caps. So then when I console all caps there, you should have the string, whatever your name is, in all caps. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now, I mean, obviously, what you could simply do is I could just say, log my name. I think this works to uppercase. That does the same thing, right? But again, that's the difference between um, imperative versus declarative. But again, you may have a challenge, somewhere where you're tasked to do something like this. Okay. Um, and so there's how you could do it. Questions about that? Cool. So your lesson is to go and listen to Mad Villainy first, and then secondly, uh, practice working with the for each loop, the for loop. Um, I would say I would have, say, a particular data set. It could be a string, it could be an array, and just try to do the same thing with using all the different loops. Try to complete the same task with the same data set. Figure out which one you like more, which one feels most comfortable. And whichever one feels most comfortable, don't do that one. Work on the one that feels least comfortable so that you can build up your muscle when it comes to that. Uh, like, comment, share, subscribe, hug, take these videos out on a nice date. They will greatly appreciate it and they'll thank you later. Uh, and so, yeah, I think that's it for loops right now. There is the for in loop, but not at a place yet where we want to look at that because there's a data structure that we need to look at before we move into a for in loop. So that being said, catch you all on the next video.